I did these drawings for these various locations. We went to each of the locations, then we went to the openings. And that was a lot of fun. It ended up, and Debbie and I were really basically just starting to date. So our dating life was going to history museums and visiting locations in New York State, which are interesting, along the canal. And I kept saying to myself, well, where's the canal, you know? And you would have to find little areas where there might be a plaque on the wall, or a little area where there might be some concrete abutments that are half buried by streets and people and various things, because, well, life keeps going on, right? And the history, at this time, the canal served a really important function, but it was usurped, like all technological events are, by better technological events. The steam engine locomotive, and then the Welland Canal. But still, these locations were there. And at the time, if you look along these edges, these are all homes built around the canal. They were built, the businesses built around the canal for people who were working on the canal boats in various industries. It made a certain technological dent in the community. And then, I like looking at pictures of Roman ruins, Greek ruins. I haven't been there. We intend to go to Italy, so I can look at some ruins in person. But it's a little different. There really aren't there's not like a canal boat stranded at various locations. They were ditches, right? So the entire history of them exists in these photographs you see here. And this says something to me about the beauty and the complexity of a world that keeps layering on top of itself time and time again. And I'm sure there are many people that have a romanticism about the idea that, well, I wish the canal was more present here or here or here. But they've been buried over, because everything is about money, and real estate is expensive. And at the time the canal went through these areas, I'm sure it improved the livelihood of those areas. Okay, that was okay. Because I was thinking, what do I want to talk about? I like the history. I like the idea of layered history. I like the finding relics of something that once existed. Okay, and so the relics are kind of far and few between, especially in Rochester, which I thought that was exceedingly interesting. That was an aqueduct over the Genesee River, you know, and there's boats, and so maybe 20 years or something. Does anyone know how long they were, like in Rochester or something? 30 years, 20 years? Then they were covered over, paved over, and they became highways and roads. So, Debbie passed out these pictures here, right? And you can look at some of the pictures. So here I am, I have the pictures. I think I had an easel set up so I could compare one to the other. And I'm trying my very best to make it as accurate as possible. I'm a drawing teacher. Besides, it's not a venue for me to like invent and become like creative in the sense of modifying and changing and switching them around. It's history, right? So it was a fun, exciting challenge. And in fact, after it was all said and done, I did little paintings of the same subject matter because I like it. It's kind of intriguing. I mean, the waterways are kind of straight and then they might bend, and the boats are like long rectangles that are rounded at the edges. See, simple, practical drawing stuff, which is where my head is at. You know? So, in retrospect, I've learned more about this stuff, but there are people here that know a lot more than me about it. I'm just the artist. And, okay, so we have some of these pictures here, and I did the drawings from them. Sometimes I put charcoal, I put Conti crayon on the surface. Conti crayon is a nice medium to work with. Charcoal is kind of messy, it pulls up very easily. But Conti is in between a pencil and charcoal, so it's nice. Nice middle ground. And so I had these various things, and then we went to these locations and put them up. And I'm glad you guys put it up here, because I'm not great at putting things up like this. So then we decided at that time, well, maybe we'll have some things which people can buy, because I assume in my sort of my commercial naivety that I would become well known as being an illustrator of the Erie Canal, right? So we have all of these pictures. We have posters and these various things. And I'm not like, this is not like an infomercial or trying to sell myself. But we had these things made by a guy whose name is Brian Nessline, who was a friend of ours. Regrettably, he died later. And he was a very nice guy. And so I had the posters. We had the images. We bought piles of frames, these metal frames, metal and glass frames. So it was a little put together the work kind of factory stuff. And so there's always a practical component. And then we went to the World Canal Conference. And this was in Syracuse. And there again, I also thought, wow, this is really going to take off. You know what I mean? You know, I was a teacher, now I'm an illustrator of the canal, right? It didn't really take off, and I tried to get people interested in, maybe interest will evolve, and interest meaning, you know, here's interest, here's cash, they come together. But probably not, maybe not, could be possibly. Like, artists, we're all dreamers, right? Art is very normal to me. My father was an artist, very well-known artist. My brother was an artist, both dead now. And so art is a natural thing to me. I like drawing, and I draw a lot. And it's not like my drawing is going to come in there and change everything else I'm doing, because I do a lot of abstract art, but I like it. I'm a traditional artist. I believe that people should draw. If they're artists, it's fun. I go to drawing groups 2 or 3 times a week because it is fun to draw. And I'm from the tradition where people spend lots of time learning to draw, which you learn a little bit each time, get a little bit better, and a little bit better tradition, you know? So it kind of fit. So here it is. These are my drawings. Could not have been done without the help of my wife. Debbie is a wonderful, organized person, and I'm not so organized. And sometimes I'm wonderful, sometimes I'm not. Right? So, but we went to the World Canal Conference, and we went on tours to look at the various sites. So I did see them. We would drive through these like built up, mostly in the country communities, and there would be a location, and we'd go down a little road, and then there'd be this little block of area, and that would have been the Erie Canal. So that's like, oh, there it is, you know. You know, I was thinking, like, where's Waldo? I don't know, that's kind of cool. But where's the canal, right? We know where the Coliseum is because they make a lot of money from it, and they built it and saved it, you know. We know where some of the buildings are in Italy, where these old Roman structures, and I love Roman architecture. I think it's beautiful. I mean, all this concrete, that's like really, really interesting stuff. The Romans themselves weren't beautiful. They were kind of brutal, you know, with all their, you know, killing people in the Colosseum and all that stuff. But their architecture is pretty damn cool, because they came up with ways of, oh, what am I talking about this for? But the point is this is history. We recorded the history, made work from it, and in a very real sense, not that many people are going to go to the history museums and ask to see these particular drawings. So the existence of the canal in the olden context of when it was done, it exists here. So that is a contribution to local history. It exists in these images. And they're kind of modified and altered a little bit, right? Because I'm an artist, right? So they're kind of a little folksy, but they're still there. So that's their value, I believe. You know? And I have tons of art. I do all kinds of art. And I like to think, what's the value of this or that? Well, whatever. But I think these things are interesting because this is something that was here, and now it's gone. And that's engaging. And for those of you around here who are aficionados, right, of the Erie Canal, you have even more appreciation of it, you know? When we were at the conference, there were a lot of people from England. England has a very rich canal history. There were kind of smaller canals, and there were smaller boats. Amsterdam had a contribution. So at the canals, there's kind of European people visiting here from European canal areas. Something people don't often know, there was a canal that branched off from Buffalo and went all the way down to Cleveland. And for the people in Ohio, that's interesting to them, you know? Somebody might have a farm and, you know, there's vestiges of this construction and they think, oh wow, that's cool. And it is cool, you know? But we all come into We all come into the world, we live for a while, we connect with various things, interesting people, various things, and we see various things. Well, history and technology is the same way. It comes into the world, it's used for a while, and then it's buried, and it has to be resurrected through art forms or photographs to be appreciated again. Because we don't want to forget about it, right? So that's that. I mean, we live in a computer age now, so technology is different computer systems, right? But at this time, and I was thinking about something also when I was coming over here. At the time this was made, 1825, people didn't even have illumination in their homes. The kerosene lamp industry wasn't even developed. So they basically lived by the daylight that they lived in. There were books. Very few people heard classical music themselves. They were living in an more isolated world. Technology comes in, speeds things up. So it must have been quite interesting to the people who owned these properties. Unless it was their farms and they were cut in half by the canal. Well, I'm going on. Debbie's giving me the shaking head.